Good afternoon, everyone. Earlier today, I sent a letter to the Speaker of the House of Commons requesting an emergency debate tonight on the urgent situation across our country facing Canada Post. You know, at a time when Canada's sovereignty is under threat from south of the border, national institutions that bind Canadians and connect communities are more important than ever. I think we all know Canada Post is older than our country itself, and it existed as a government department until 1981 when it was transformed into a Crown corporation. Canada Post does more than just deliver the mail. It connects communities, it serves our business community, it brings political information from the House of Commons into the houses of Canadians. It, I think, performs a service that binds us together as a nation. Now, in 2015, the Liberals very publicly promised to stop Stephen Harper's plan to end home mail delivery. They said that constituted real change. Now, they either were not honest with Canadians in 2015 when they made that promise, or in the last 10 years of them being in government, they have failed in that promise. Now, every single initiative that has ever been proposed by CUPW to create revenue streams for Canada Post to modernize it and make it viable have been rejected by this government. In fact, in 2018, then Minister Qualtrough undertook a very public review to look at the very significant issues facing Canada Post. Nothing ever came of that. So here we are today in 2025, facing a national strike where tens of thousands of people across this country are on picket lines because this government has decided to drop a bomb in the middle of collective bargaining. Which brings me to another point of this government's pattern of illegitimate and unfair interference in collective bargaining. At a time when Canada Post and COPW are at the bargaining table, engaged in very sensitive discussions, this government makes an announcement, not through management, not delivered at the bargaining table, but done by the minister, that essentially blew up collective bargaining and led to this strike. Now, we all know that delivering the mail today in 2025 is different than it was decades ago. We know that there are economic challenges facing Canada Post. However, the question is how best to deal with them. And that's why we think an institution as vital to our country as Canada Post is, as historically relevant and as integral it is to our economy, we should be having a debate in this House of Commons looking at every conceivable measure and initiative that might be taken to improve its revenue sources and make it viable for the 21st century. So I hope that the Speaker agrees with our request and that we can have a very public discussion and hold this government to account for what I think is egregious interference in collective bargaining, as well as their failure to ensure that home mail delivery and a viable Canada Post can be counted on for generations to come. So I'll look forward to any questions you may have.
Mr. Davies, on the kind of labour front, I know maybe not specifically just Canada Post, but we've seen what this government has done when it comes to intervening the Air Canada Flight Attendant strike. Has this government's performance on the labour rights file been enough to create that red line that will stop the NDP from maybe considering this upcoming budget whether to support them?
Well, what I can tell you is that I haven't seen a more atrocious anti-worker agenda from any government since Stephen Harper, and that's saying quite a bit. It's almost like the Carney government has declared war on organized labour. They've used Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code 8 times to essentially misuse it to end workers' right to take job action. This latest maneuver by the Carney government to drop a bomb in the middle of collective bargaining, I think also shows incredible disrespect for free collective bargaining. The government should take a supportive and it should take a supportive role in establishing fair collective bargaining atmospheres. It should not intervene on the side of one or the other, and the Carney government has done that repeatedly on behalf of management, to the point where I think employers in this country They believe they don't have to actually bargain in good faith at the table because the Liberal government will bail them out and take away their workers' rights to strike. So, I'm not in a position to declare red lines, but I can tell you that New Democrats are extremely concerned about the assault on workers and organized labour in this country by the Liberal government.
Mr. Davies, does this create an opening for the NDP?
Well, we don't think of it in terms of political openings as much, but I will say, as the Liberals move decidedly to the right of centre, I think it leaves the NDP as the only progressive national party in the country that's actually sticking up for working people and defending the rights of organized labour.
What's your position on the culling order on the ostrich farm in British Columbia?
I don't really have any position on that at this point. I don't know that much about the issue.
Are you hearing from constituents about it at all?
I am, yeah. I mean, I think the main criterion should always be public health, and public health should be put first and foremost. So as long as that's the guiding principle, then I would call on all parties to act according to that principle.
There are more tariffs coming on softwood lumber, film, and other stuff. Do you think the government's doing a good job at handling the situation with the Trump administration when it comes to tariffs and supporting workers?
No, I don't, and frankly, the record I think speaks for itself. The Carney government's approach to tariffs since he was elected has been really to give nothing but unilateral concessions to the Americans, getting nothing in return. And I don't think the situation is materially better today than it was on April 29th. Mr. Carney also promised an elbows-up approach during the election. I think Canadians expected him to take a strong, robust position. And if the Americans are going to put unfair tariffs on Canada, then there's a case to be made for us to have equivalent retaliatory tariffs. And what did Mr. Carney do? He removed them. So I think, when you're dealing with a bully, when you cave into a bully, all that does is encourage the bully. So at some point, I think Canadians want their government to stand up with a fair, strong, and robust defense of Canada's economic interests, and I'm not seeing that from this government.
Elizabeth May said she's meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss the budget. Do you have any meetings with the Prime Minister to discuss the budget?
I'll be meeting with the Prime Minister today, but there's been no firm agenda as to what that meeting's about yet.
The NDP.
Yes, he did.
Anybody didn't say what it was about?
Not in any particular detail, no.
Is it just with you or opposition leaders?
It's just with me.
Why would he want a meeting with you?
Well, you'd have to ask him that, I guess, but...
Didn't you say, what do you want to meet me about?
Well, we are in a minority parliament, and this government can't get anything passed unless it has the support of one of three parties. And I've said from the beginning, New Democrats may be reduced in number, but we still constitute a balance of power. And if this government wants to get any progressive legislation passed, at some point they're going to have to count on New Democrat votes. I also think it's just good practice in a minority parliament, frankly in a majority parliament, for leaders to talk to one another and have open lines of communication.
You must have a shopping list.
No, we don't have any shopping list. I think I've been very clear since I was appointed leader that we're here to do one thing, and that is to advocate for working people across this country and to press for policies that will bring real relief to working families across the country. There's no secret about that.
What do you make of the possibility to see more American dairy products on Canadian shelves as part of changes to the USMCA, which revision is due next year?
Well, I think everybody wants to see a fair resolution. Anytime you see countries not buying each other's products because they're angry at each other, I don't think that that's positive for the economies of either country. That's been Canada's position from the beginning, which is tariffs hurt workers on both sides of the border. And I think Mr. Trump's approach has been very difficult to understand from an economic point of view. But I think what we want to do is see a fair resolution. And if we can't get that fair resolution, then I think we want to see the Canadian government taking strong stands to pivot away from Mr. Trump, diversify our trade relationships and get more self-sufficient in our country, build more things here.
More people put their names in the ring for NDP leadership. What do you want to see in the next leader for your party and for the party's future?
Well, it's a bit early to say. As interim leader, I have to remain neutral. And so, it's my job right now really to try to steer the ship and get us pointed in the right direction and moving so that whoever the next leader is, they're taking over a party that's, well-grounded, with momentum, and that's what I'm going to do. So I don't really have any particular vision of what the next leader is, other than I have confidence that there's going to be a number of very strong candidates with different visions of the NDP, and we'll have a vigorous debate. And you know, I'm very proud of all the NDP leaders we've ever had. They've all been special people in their own way, and I have no doubt the next one will be too.
Mr. Davies, considering a budget is not far off and you're meeting with the Prime Minister, don't you think the budget topic will come up? And I'm imagining if it does, you might have an idea what you want to see in it, because he'll need your vote.
Well, it may come up, and I expect it to. I mean, our first position, Julie, is that, you know, we never evaluate a budget until we read it. You know, I don't know how you can position yourselves on a document, especially one as important as this government's first budget in some very challenging economic circumstances, without reading it. So our first pledge is that we will wait for the budget to come out. Second, again, you know, we're going to have one major lens looking at this budget. Is it good for working people or not in this country? And that's going to be the focus of what we're looking for. You know, I am concerned about framing this budget as austerity. That's not what New Democrats think should happen right now. You know, we believe this is a time for investment, investment in our healthcare system, investment in non-market affordable housing, and creation of jobs. You know, we're facing a significant jobs crisis in this country. We lost 100,000 jobs just in the last 2 months of summer. And, you know, we just had bad news out of Calgary and Oshawa. We're shedding thousands of jobs. And if you're young, especially 1 out of 6 young people, is out of work? That's a crisis. And it's a real loss for our economy when that kind of energy and enthusiasm and skill set is not being marshaled. So, you know, we'll be looking for action and meaningful investment on things like that. And I'll be happy to speak to the Prime Minister about that.
So the bloc that says they can't approve of a budget with such a high level of deficit as it's been touted by PBO, by other individuals in media. For you, the amount of the deficit is not the question you'll be looking at, or is it one of the factors that you see that could be a red line?
Well, one thing I'd say at the outset is the Bloc Québécois also said they would support this government for a year right after the election, so they seem to be changing their position on that. You know, the deficit is always one factor in analyzing any budget, so it's an important factor, but for us it's not the only factor, nor is it necessarily the most important factor. You know, the deficit relevant to GDP is also an important metric, and the general economic circumstances are critically important.
It appears this confidence vote, though, hinges on the support from the NDP. So will you continue to prop up the Liberal government? We've seen you do that in the past. You know, what would it take to continue supporting that?
I don't know what you mean by continuing to prop up the Liberal government. The only party that's propping up the government in this parliament has been the Conservatives, who have propped them up. The NDP voted against the throne speech in June. We have done no propping up.
Would you be prepared to go to an election if in the middle of a leadership race?
Well, you know, that's really up to Mr. Carney. You know, as the Prime Minister in a minority parliament, it's his job to construct a budget that can win and earn majority support. So that's entirely up to him. All I can tell you is we're going to be a traditional worker-based NDP opposition. We will support things we support. We'll oppose things we don't. And we will examine that budget based on whether it's good for working people or not.
Or though to go to an election?
You know, no, I don't think Canadians want an election right now. I don't think anybody wants an election. We're certainly not looking for one, and it's not about us right now or an election. The most important issues in this country right now are the serious issues facing Canadians from coast to coast. They sent us here on April 28th, only 5 months ago, to address the serious problems facing their communities. And that's what we're going to focus on. So I'm not worried about an election right now. I'm worried about whether or not we are going to construct effective policies so that people can get affordable housing. We can create the kind of family-sustaining jobs that Canadians need. We have some action on the climate crisis. You know, we address the affordability issue. These are the kinds of issues that Canadians, I think, want us focused on right now, and that's what New Democrats are focused on. Thank you very much.